Well, hello guys. This is kind of an unusual setting, I know. I'm up here in Oklahoma, Fort Sill, which I've got several clips I'm hoping to splice together here, but I may just have to do the basics here until I get the hang of how to post some of this stuff according to how we're supposed to. But it's really cold up here right now, as you can see, and I just finally had to resolve to do some of this in my truck here, and instead of in the facilities, but it should be better. It's so windy out there you can't hear anything. I did get some clips outside at some of the historic sites that I might be able to add when the weather was still good. But I mainly just want to talk about one aspect of the West today, and that's the Indian Wars of this post-Civil War period. So you still have some of your outline maybe from class, and I'm hopefully was able to put something of an outline on Facebook or whatever we're using to go along with this this video clip, which there's probably a link that'll take you to that, and let's hope all that works. But we've looked at what's called the New West and the New South. This is both a reference to those two areas after the Civil War, 1865. And we keep talking about the New West as sort of a reference to all the new technology that was coming to the West, such as the railroads and et cetera, et cetera. We still sometimes do call it the Old West, but that's more Hollywood, and you know, it's kind of in the eye of the beholder, I guess. But in many ways, this period after the Civil War was a major turning point for what we've been calling the West. And other than industries coming there, and of course cattle industry and things like that, there was still a huge chunk of the West that was fairly unsettled, and that's mostly that area that we call the Great Plains. And I'm going to show you a quick little overview of the map here, if you can make it out. You should know from your map skills, the Great Plains is basically this swath of prairies and stuff that goes from really part of Texas all the way up into modern-day Canada, somewhat bordered by the Mississippi River over here, give or take a little, and of course the Rocky Mountains over here. And within that huge swath, you had some of your probably better-known Indian groups, really starting from top to bottom. The Sioux, several different branches of the Sioux, all the way from like Minnesota over toward the mountains. The Cheyenne kind of occupied the central plains, give or take a little. And then of course the ones we've all heard of here in Texas, the Comanches. They were sort of the king of the southern plains. Now you had smaller groups mixed in there like the Kiowa and the Blackfeet and the Crow and the Pawnee. I tried to put all them on there, but you'll probably see reference to them. Those are kind of the big three for the Great Plains. You got the Apaches over here in the southwest, but several branches of the Apaches sort of crossed over into the Great Plains and even portions of Texas. So lots of events going on with them. I went ahead and put the Utes. They're not a huge player in all this. The Nez Perce, and once again, I tried not to put too many of the peripheral ones, even though it is important. And of course, over here where I'm at, Oklahoma, this was then known as Indian Territory because before the Civil War, about 40 or 50 different tribal groups from the east had been relocated over here into different, they divided it up into strips. Some of it went into Kansas, and that's why you have so many Indian groups in Oklahoma today. And even some of these, like Comanches and stuff, had also were sometimes being relocated there. So Oklahoma was one of your last states to come in because it was Indian Territory for so long. But that'll come up a little bit in this course as well. And of course, these big three really became the powerhouses that they're remembered for. Really, in those years, maybe a few decades before the Civil War, maybe 100 years before the Civil War, when they acquired the horse and the gun and really changed their way of life. So if you go back real far, this area wasn't largely populated, and Comanche, Cheyenne, and Sioux really didn't start becoming major players until like 1700s, and it's really because they got the horse, and it really changed their way of life. It's like you getting a car or something. But by this point in history, of course, They were super powerful, very large, and of course they kind of were the last frontier when it comes to Indians submitting or anything like that, with a few exceptions here and there. But that's the kind of a quick overview of the area we're talking about. This last round of Indian wars, roughly from the end of the Civil War until 1890, they say, but basically the same period we've been studying over and over and over for the last few weeks. You know, it is a culmination of really Indian wars that go all the way back to, I guess, Columbus. And if you just talk about the United States, then, you know, from the time we became a country. A few breaks in between, but this is really a last round, and it's the best remembered, best known, probably because of Hollywood. Just like we sometimes say the Old West, or at least people used to, they sometimes refer to this last round of Indian wars as the Plains Indian Wars. It's plural because